Hey everybody, this is the Hipster Snek, and today we're going to do another unscripted Snek Talk. Yeah, it's kind of been a while since I've done one of these. This is a topic that I've actually introduced way back in my How to Make Games satire series, but I really wanted to talk about it nonetheless in a more direct and more meaningful way. That being that I really hate anti-consumerist messages in media. By which I mean the idea of, OMG, consumerism is the villain. It doesn't make any sense. And in a media context, it's self-contradictory. Games and movies and books are all meant to be sold, and the author wants them to be sold and consumed because that's how the creator of the media ends up making money on the final product. By that, I mean things like how zombie films are set in malls, and Dead Rising is another good example of this. But people forget that even though monster movies are indeed commentary on the human condition, zombie films were originally created as a commentary on human cooperation. The Night of the Living Dead was about how it's more dangerous that humans can't work together for a common goal more than the monsters that are outside the house wanting to get in. It had literally nothing to do with consumerism to begin with. That was an abstraction added by different directors and writers years after the fact. And those zombie films set in malls, this is a delusional Hollywood communist viewpoint of the world. A rich man moralizing to the average Joe about how much better they are because, oh, I'm not a consumer, you are. Never mind the fact they're riding around in expensive cars and large mansions. This is completely insane. To say nothing of Dead Rising's absolutely pants on head stupid, her Americans are fat. I mean, let's ignore the fact that it's probably because we became carnivores that our brains were able to develop, which might explain the smooth brains behind the Dead Rising franchise and its inevitable meteoric fall. And never mind the fact that wasps are a terrible way of explaining away a zombie plague, but that's neither here nor there. A better example of this, now that we're getting more on topic, would be Mother 3. And Mother 3, I'm just going to say it, Mother 3 is a bad game, largely in part because of this inherent conundrum. I'm never going to apologize for this, by the way. I don't care. It's not good. And the fact is, when you start the game and all the items are free and everyone just lives in this happy-dappy, hippy-dippy, lovey-dovey little commune, and all the items are free, all the items have to be terrible and useless just to balance the game. And good items don't become available until you're forced to actually pay money for them, which actually just kind of proves that the pig masks were right, and that the technological evolution of the world didn't get started until they left that weird, completely subject of fantasy commune world and entered into the modern era. Pretty much in exactly the same way that mercantilism was the death knell of feudalism. But I'm not here to really get into different economic systems and their pros and cons. The point of the matter is, it runs contrary to human nature, and it makes the writing in a game that had potential to be something more come off as Shigeshata Itoi having a midlife crisis and wanting to write a story he could claim was deep and meaningful, when in actuality it's neither of those things and actually incredibly shallow. Let me ask you this, what is consumerism in this context? Is it something that can even happen? What about people who are avidly passionate? What about people who have been into, say, Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh!, other trading card games since their inception, and they are genuinely excited whenever a new block drops? It gives them new deck building potential, it gives them new ways to play the game, new mechanics to experiment with, and new ways that older ones might synergize with the newer ones. Is that hobbyism, or is that consumerism? At what point does that line suddenly become blurred? The meme tends to be consume product, get excited for next product, consume product, but at the same time, no one really takes the time out to say that that honestly makes no sense even in context. Because, first of all, you can argue, well, no, Snek, it's not consumerism itself, it's mindless consumerism, and yeah, okay, there might be an argument to be made for that, but that's never the line that's actually drawn. It's more that people are trying to guilt people who are playing the game or reading the story or watching the movie that, oh no, you're a stupid sheep and you liking things is bad. There's never any actual nuance to the storytelling, whether it be things like They Live, which was made by an avowed communist who just wanted to talk down to people because he thought he knew better than everyone else. At what point does your idea of that's mindless consumerism overlap with someone else's idea of, hey, this is a hobby that I'm really into, or this is a book series that I really enjoy that's simply gone on for a large number of volumes? Where do those ideas intersect, if at all? And honestly, here's another question that a lot of people don't stop to ask. How can you not participate in some level of consumerism? I mean, let's ignore the obvious thing, the fact that you have to eat. Let's instead focus exclusively on media consumption. Everyone has a TV series or a movie or a book series or games that they really enjoy. There are a lot of people out there, and do a rudimentary search on YouTube and you'll definitely see what I'm talking about. Look up The Legend of Zelda. See how many people are insanely passionate about the games, are really into the story, are really into the gameplay, really into, oh, this one is my favorite and here's why, or this one wasn't as good and here's why. You'll see analyses out the wazoo of everything Zelda related top down. It's really popular. It has wide mainstream appeal. Is picking up the next Zelda title because you're a fan of mindless consumerism? I mean, gaming is certainly an expensive hobby. There could be some kind of argument to it, but I've never found a good one for it. In fact, while I was writing this very episode, COG actually came to me with a news article, and I'll post it down below so that you guys can see it in the video description. But I'm going to go ahead and just read this little quote to you, so bear with me. American journalists poke fun at the Soviet passion for American consumer goods because they cannot think of consumerism in the United States without ambivalence. It takes an immigrant, or these days a Soviet visitor, by the way, this was written in late 80s, to speak of American abundance in beatific terms. Boris Yeltsin, now president of the Russian Republic, returned from a 9-day American tour in the fall of 1989, effusive about the extraordinary wealth of American life. Their supermarkets have 30,000 food items, he told supporters in his first public address back home. You can't imagine it. It makes the people feel secure. Yeltsin urged that at least 100 million Soviets must pass through the American school of supermarkets to understand the American system, and the leaders must be first. Point is, prior to the Industrial Revolution, things were a lot harder. Sustenance farming was much more the norm, and people had to do that just to get by, or else they would literally die. But now we live in an era where technology has advanced and methods have improved, the science has found better ways of doing more with what we've had in the past, and we now live in a world of unprecedented choice and options. I don't think it's consumerism, let alone mindless consumerism, that suddenly is a huge problem. I mean, certainly there is an argument to be made that self-control is an issue, especially in westernized nations, and yeah, I can see that. But let's be real, just enjoying movies or games or what have you is not a mindless pursuit. Entertainment is a huge part of people's lives, and to deny that is folly. Even in the days before electronic media, there were still books, there were still board games, there were still puzzles. That's why the sea shanty became such a popular pastime among maritime farers. All this stuff connects to the human need for something mentally stimulating. And while you can argue that some of it's turn off your brain and just, veg on the couch kind of entertainment, that's not how necessarily everyone engages with it. People can get really into their shows, get really passionate about lore and secondary material. Just look at the Star Wars expanded universe just to see how passionate people can get about the stories that their media is telling them. That's not mindless consumerism, that's being a fan. The point I'm trying to make in a bit of a roundabout manner is the fact that it's a terrible moral. It's a dumb point to try to make. You're just a dumb zombie if you enjoy... Where does that particular rabbit hole even lead anyway? Because honestly, I think it's a dead end. Because it makes no sense whatsoever. People are going to like things, and yes, people are going to buy products either because they're entertaining, because they're helpful, because they're useful, or simply because they enjoy them. And there's really no reason to tell them not to. People have every right to, indeed, consume whatever it is they wish to consume. That's why they come up with things like the customer is always right, as debatable as that is for anyone who's ever been in a service industry, to moralize about consumerism in the way that Hollywood and indeed many video games have done is basically a rich man telling an average man to be more like him, to be more above it all, when in actuality neither one truly is. And given how expensive video games are, especially in the AAA industry, where prices range anywhere between $50 and $75 for a new release, video games in particular have no leg to stand on whenever they try to bring up this point. It's backwards, it's pretentious, it's inherently wrong, and self-contradictory, let alone completely nonsensical. So thank you for joining me for this new and grossly belated Snek Talk. I'll definitely try to turn out a few more of these if you guys find any interest in them. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and tap that like button if you enjoyed today's episode. Heck, even if you disagreed with me, I'd love to hear your points, so definitely reach out. And lastly, you can hit that subscribe and bell icon for more stuff like this, with Snek Talks going live whenever I can do them every Friday. And I will see you there.